The word Spartan conjures images of austerity, discipline, and unmatched military strength. But ancient Sparta was more than just fearless warriors. It was a rigorous social machine, engineered for one single purpose: war. Its celebrated discipline was built on a foundation of state terror. Today, we're going to analyze the radical mechanisms, the Agoge, the Cryptia, and the Syssitia, that created the most feared military force of the ancient world and ultimately ensured its collapse. Welcome to the paradox of Lacedaemonia. The entire Spartan system was codified by the Great Retra, the fundamental, unwritten law often attributed to the legendary legislator Lycurgus. This law established a rigid social pyramid necessary to sustain the militarized state. Because the Retra was oral and not written down, it gained a sacred authority and intentionally blocked political debate or reform. At the very top were the Spartiates, also known as the Homoi, the equals. These were the full citizens, dedicated exclusively to military training and running the state. Below them were the Perioiko, which means those who live around. They were free people living in surrounding communities and had rights within their own towns. But crucially, they lacked Spartan citizenship. The Perioiko often structured their economies around private land and agriculture, sometimes even owning their own slaves, who were distinct from the Helots. Finally, at the base of the pyramid were the Helots. These were state-owned slaves, often the descendants of conquered peoples, collectively subjected to the Spartan state. Their labor was the critical economic engine that allowed the Homoi to live their lives as professional soldiers. To ensure absolute allegiance to the state, Spartan males were subjected to the Agoge, an extreme system of state-run education. From the moment of birth, boys were evaluated by the Gerousia, the Council of Elders. If a baby was deemed too weak or deformed, they might be abandoned. Then, at just 7 years old, a boy was abruptly taken from his family and placed in communal barracks, living in groups called herds. The training was relentless, focusing on physical endurance, discipline, and military tactics, along with basic literacy. Food was deliberately kept scarce. Boys were actually encouraged to steal food, but they were severely punished if they were discovered, not for the act of stealing, but for the incompetence of being caught. This brutal environment fostered loyalty to the city-state above all else. The Agoge culminated at age 20, when the young man joined the army. However, he wouldn't be fully integrated into civic life until he turned 30. This education system created bonds that were stronger than family, including same-sex relationships between older and younger recruits, all designed to forge unbreakable ties between future soldiers. The most controversial tool of control was the Cryptia. The participants, known as Cryptoi, were young Spartiates, sometimes chosen from the most intelligent and capable among them. They were sent on what was called an astonishing exercise in endurance. Given only a dagger and minimal food, they were sent into the countryside to hide during the day and patrol at night. Their terrifying mission was the selective assassination of Helots. They were ordered to target the strongest and most robust Helots, the very ones who might be capable of organizing a resistance. Aristotle even noted that the ephors, the annually elected magistrates, would formally declare war on the Helots each year when they took office. This legally justified the killings and prevented any religious pollution from the act. This practice served as a brutal rite of passage for the young Spartans and as a political tool of state terrorism, designed to keep the massive Helot population in a constant state of fear. Historians still debate if the Cryptia was an ancient ritual, or if it was heavily reinstitutionalized after major crises, like the devastating Helot revolt that followed the earthquake of 464 BC. Once a Spartan achieved the full status of homoios, his life remained under strict communal control through the Syssitia, the mandatory communal meals. Groups of about 15 men were required to dine together every single night. Attendance was compulsory, and the only excuses were for hunting or religious sacrifices. The Syssitia was essentially a political club, designed to strengthen the bonds among the Spartiates. Each member had to contribute a fixed portion of staples every month, including barley, wine, cheese, and figs, plus a small amount of money for any extra provisions. This contribution was non-negotiable. Failure to pay your dues meant you immediately lost your citizen rights and military status, becoming an outcast known as a hypomeons. This mandatory dining also acted as a powerful form of social surveillance. If a Spartan showed up having already eaten, it was seen as a direct challenge to the ideal of austerity. And despite being called equals, the Syssitia also created social divides, as wealthier individuals could make voluntary contributions to gain prestige and influence. Despite its carefully engineered stability, the Spartan system suffered from a critical internal flaw: oliganthropy, a severe and chronic shortage of full citizens. This demographic decline was driven by high death rates in battle, and just as importantly, the structural inability of the poorest homoioi to pay their compulsory Syssitia dues, which caused them to lose their citizenship. The number of Spartan citizens dropped dramatically over time, falling from thousands to possibly less than 1,000 by the mid-4th century BC. This rigid system, which relied on the homoioi, forced Sparta to use other groups. The Perioiko played a crucial military role, supplying troops to the Lacedaemonian army, especially after the citizen crisis became severe around the mid-5th century BC. The Perioii were free, but their own rural communities had their own social divisions, with wealthy landowners and poorer peasants. The state was forced to recruit these Perioiko farmers, often during crucial harvest seasons for summer campaigns, which destabilized their own rural economies. This reliance on non-citizens for the army, coupled with the shrinking citizen body, left Sparta's military foundation profoundly fragile. Sparta's history is a crucial case study in centralized social engineering. The Rhetra created a seemingly invincible military machine, focused on stability and ideological rigidity. However, this very rigidity prevented Sparta from adapting to external pressures and economic realities. The system's complete reliance on Helot labor demanded institutionalized terror, like the Cryptia, yet it failed to prevent the demographic implosion, the oliganthropy, of its own ruling class, which was only made worse by the concentration of wealth. The state that mandated equality among its citizens, the homoioi, ultimately perished because of the economic inequality and the demographic crisis it structurally created. Spartan success, especially in the Peloponnesian War, was, tragically, the catalyst for its structural failure. The system was a machine designed for stasis. When external forces introduced variability, its rigid structure shattered. Let us know in the comments below. If you found this historical analysis insightful, please like this video, subscribe,